In this week's episode, we find out what made John say this.
At the end of the month, find out what your total gross is you're generated. Ask your owner to cut you a check for that. Ain't happening, Chemo Sabi.
Well, here we go, folks. Welcome back. Episode number 27. You're at LotTalk, powered by Lotpop. I'm Chris Keene, one of the co-hosts. I'm joined by my great friends, Mr. John Anderson, Mr. Renaldo Leonard. Gentlemen, we took a nice little break. We needed it. More importantly, we got to celebrate Memorial Day. With that being said, I know we're past it, but much love, much respect for those that came before us, defending our freedom. We have the most admiration for those that have served, are serving. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you. With that, John, we're on episode 27. We talk about squirrels. We talk about shiny objects. We're talking about the little red balloon that catches our attention. I'm excited to dive off into it. But you was telling Renaldo and I a story about your old mentor, your guy that helped raise you in this business over at French. And when you started seeing squirrels and shiny objects, what did he tell you?
He always pulled me back in and reined me back in by saying, "Hey, Johnny, the tools that you have are on a tool belt on your waist, just like a carpenter, right? And a carpenter doesn't use his tape measure 8 hours a day, right? When he has to measure something, he takes it off his tool belt. He doesn't use his hammer 8 hours a day. You know, he doesn't use his nail gun 8 hours a day, right? It's just, it serves a purpose, right? He understands what that purpose is. If you talk to any of the guys in my 20 group, they always used to joke with me and say, "Hey, if you guys want to know anything about any new platforms or software things out there, ask John, because he chases all the shiny objects," right? So I would always try things to see. I never signed up for them long term, but I would try them, right? I would try them to see, hey, is it going to make a difference? But to Ed's point, right, you have a tendency to start leaning on those things, thinking they're going to solve your problems, and they don't, right? They'll identify areas of opportunity for you, but it's the knowledge up here, just like the carpenter, right? He has the knowledge of what tool to use to accomplish the job. And I think that's where Ed used to rein me in. And that's why I'm excited about this episode, because we're going to get into this today. And I'm really excited about that, because I do think it's a very critical area. And I know, Brett brought a article to our attention earlier this week, and that's how this all stemmed to why we wanted to go into it, because it is an extremely critical area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it definitely is. And, Renaldo, I'd love for you to weigh in before you have to run to the dentist. John, Renaldo got to go to the dentist. You got to go get some new wooden teeth.
You got to get some tooths. You got to get some tooths fixed.
You got to get some new wooden teeth, man. So, Renaldo, take it back. Take it back to your day when you was at the dealership. Hell, even in what we do for a living here, and we think about all the inefficiencies and the little shiny objects that catch our attention and derail us. I mean, what are some things that used to happen to you, back in the day when you were in the retail dealership, when you rode the desk, F&I, wherever you were sitting at in the store? What happened?
Well, and I'm glad that John brought up the analogy with the tool belt, because one of my favorite stories, I had a mentor pull me aside as I was just starting to get into, using pricing tools as a manager and managing inventory. The old story about the two lumberjacks. You had, and bear with me just a second, but you had two lumberjacks, and they started work same day every time. And they both finished work every day at the same time. But at the end of the day, the one guy would look over at his partner and say, "Man, you're chopping twice as much wood as I do, but you take an hour off in the middle of the day. How do you outperform me? And we're working the same amount of time, but actually you're working less." And he goes, "Well, it's because I take an hour during the middle of the day to sharpen my axe."
Yep.
And so the moral to that story for me, and the reason that I brought it to the forefront, is that, my mentor always told me that, yeah, you have these tools, but if you don't have the understanding on how to apply them to the job at hand,
Exactly.
you might as well be swinging a dull axe or
Exactly.
using a hammer to try to chop down a tree. And so
For real.
and we've talked about this on a number of occasions, there's always something that comes to the marketplace that's designed to solve a problem that a dealer may or may not have. And so there's shiny objects out there everywhere. But, and just to kind of touch on the article that we're going to dive into a little bit later on, all of those tools are out there and all those tools are available, but are we taking the time to sharpen our axe, which is understanding exactly what the problem is and then how we can solve it, and then using that tool, to give us an advantage with efficiency and profitability. So, as a matter of fact, I had that conversation this morning with a gentleman from Arizona. And so I love the topic. I love to talk about it. So I'm ready to dive in. And if a chiclet falls out of my head while we're filming this episode, I'm just going to dip out and I'll holler at y'all later.
Well, if it's a green chiclet, then we're going to have another conversation, because I will let you know here at Lotpop, we do have a dental plan that you could exercise.
I get that. That's the only reason I'm going to be dipping out here in a minute. Otherwise, I just get the pliers and yank it out.
Let's dive in, because Renaldo, for as long as we have you, before you go see Ben Franklin and George Washington and go get some new teeth, I definitely would get some feedback from you, because you do, a lot of the training for our company as the director of training performance, and you see a lot of these things, that because of the way that we at Lotpop, that we mirror and partner with some of these different solutions that do cause a lot of inefficiencies. And staying on that theme of the tool belt, here's one of the things that I want to elaborate on a little bit. The carpenter has the tool belt on. He's got his chisel, he's got his hammer, he's got his saw, he's got his tape measure, he's got his square, he's got all kinds of things in this tool belt. But here's the difference. He's not putting tools in his tool belt that he don't know how to use. He's putting them in there because he has taken the time to learn how to use them. And if there's one thing that we can take away from today's call, just like the last call we did, not last week, but the week before, what is it we're talking about today? Well, what we're talking about today is a lot of the inefficiencies that we create ourselves because of all these shiny, cool objects and red balloons and squirrels and things of that nature that we see each and every day. Why is this important? Is because it's taking us away from the biggest task at hand: sell more cars, make more money. And it's causing us to become very inefficient in our days with a bunch of tools that are supposed to help us be more efficient. Let there be no doubt, when that carpenter is notching out a piece of wood, and if that saw just doesn't get it all, well, he just reaches in there and he grabs that chisel and he grabs that hammer and he finishes notches it out. And it's like, my gosh, last time I was in a dealership doing one of our site visits, John, I think I was telling you about it. Ronaldo, I think I told you about it too. And I'm looking at the top of this desk management screen, and this dude had like 12 or 13 different tabs open. And I said to him, I was like, what is that? He goes, well, I need this for this and that for that and this for this and that for that and this. Oh, by the way, on this other screen here, I've got these. And I'm like, do you really need all those? I mean, back in my day, give me a Sharpie, the back of a Was Now sticker, and a 10 key. And I mean
we're in business.
Yeah, we're in business now. So, but literally, there are, so I don't want to diminish this, viewers, listeners, I don't want to diminish it. I fully understand that there are federal and state regulatory tools that you have to have up and things that you have to have. Your inventory management tool, your CRM, your DMS. I understand there's a lot of these things that you have to have, but then you got your DR tools, and you got your back-end tool for your advertising, you got this tool and that tool. You got all these tools up to make one car deal happen. And I get that. There's a lot of things you have to have. But then there's some of these things that we get inundated and engrossed with because you had a GM, or you have a GM like John used to be, and he'd come back from a 20 group or NADA or digital dealer, and next thing you know, I mean, he's got like his arms full of different new shiny tools, So, I mean, it's cool. And I'm not discounting any tool out there because they're all very good. Every single last tool that's available out there, they have merit, they have value. But here's the one thing I would tell you. If you're going to utilize all these tools, like the lumberjack story Renaldo just gave, take the time to sharpen that axe. Or in today's time, take the time to lean into the support and training that comes with those tools. Pick up the telephone and say, XYZ provider, I need help.
Yeah.
And show me how to utilize this in my everyday to be more efficient. I would highly, highly, highly recommend doing that.
I would highlight that even, Chris. Pick up the phone. Make a call, man. A combination of these platforms are not inexpensive, right? You combine them together and there's definitely an expense to them for the dealership, and you got to make it work. And so, the best way to help find the best opportunity to make it work is talk to the people that are involved with that platform and have them help you. That's what they want. Listen, that would consume my whole day. I would love that if our dealer partners were making calls like that. Hey, can you show me this? Can you help me with this? Can you? Absolutely. Because I know if that was the case, what we're going to ultimately do as a result of those calls is help them become more efficient with their time and give them time back in the day. Right. There should be an order of priority of things that, for instance, when there's a customer on your showroom floor, it should be an absolute hands down priority, right? I cringe when I go into a dealership and I see a customer walk on the showroom floor and they're kind of looking around, and the guys at the sales desk don't even get up from the sale. Their head is so in the computer working whatever they're working that they don't even acknowledge that we've got a live warm body on the showroom floor that took their time to drive into our store. And that should that computer screen should come down and everything should be focused on that person. So,
but John, let's call it out though, 100% though. We're not picking on a sales manager. You got your head in that computer because it is probably something important. But there's a variation in difference between important and urgent. And the consumer standing on your showroom floor is urgent. So we're not saying what you got your head in is bad.
No, it is absolutely not bad. Again, that would be me speaking against what we do. It's not bad, right? It's just, there's got to be, we talked about this before we came on today, right? There's got to be an order of priority to your day. There has to be. Otherwise you're going to squirrel, right? There's going to be so many things that, listen, be honest, guys, when you're working away throughout your day, and because I'm going to be honest, I know I do this. I'll speak for myself. If I'm working away and I'm working on something throughout my day, and then I get a notification that pops up on my screen, and I look at it for a second, and I was like, and then I'll click on that notification, which I know I shouldn't do, but I'll click on it. And the next thing I know, sometimes I'll look down and 10 minutes has disappeared, right? and do that enough times throughout the day, right? And then you look up at the end of the day, and you're like, I couldn't
6 times. There's an hour.
I don't understand why I couldn't get my job done today. Well, by itself, 5 or 10 minutes doesn't seem like much, but when you combine that together with multiples, and I'm not even talking about, listen, guys and gals listening or watching, I'm not even talking about that notification. I'm talking about all those tabs you got open and the different stuff you're jumping into, right? Because you're going to go down a rabbit hole. You're going to be so locked in that you're going to fail to. So you've got to work a priority schedule. If a customer walks on your showroom floor, should be all hands on deck. We used to have a 10-foot rule. I used to tell my people 10-foot rule, man. If somebody's within 10 feet of you, ask them how they're doing and if there's anything that you can help them with. Because you've got to acknowledge people. And I get it, right? You might come in today and the first 2 people that walk through the door are saying, hey, can you direct me to your service department? And then you get this mindset, well, next person that walks in, they just want to, so I'll let somebody else take care of it. You can't do that, man. You can't do it. It's got to be all hands on deck at all times when that customer, because if we believe the data, and I have no reason why to refute it, right? It comes from the 800-pound gorilla. And we found out recently, it surprised us, right? Because the guys from Cars and Coffee, man, they were on the show, right? They were on the podcast, and I forget, was it? I don't remember which one brought it up, but talked about the average customer spending 19 hours online.
Yeah,
right? It went up.
Yeah.
Yep. It went up
from what was it, 14 and a half?
14 to 16. And now, when I think it was Lou that brought it up, but anyway, it went a direction that I thought, wait a minute, 19 hours. I even stopped him. I was like, 19 hours. So here's what I can promise you. If a customer walks in your showroom door, they're there to do business, right?
They ain't there for a ham sandwich.
They're not going to do all that research for that amount of time and then drive and start the process all over again. Nobody with a sound mind's going to do that, right? And so that has to be a priority, right? So well, I want to get in. I know we want to get into what spurred this episode out today. And why we're talking about what we're talking about. But I think, man, in today's economy with what's going on out there in the marketplace, and, we showed the chart 2 weeks ago, we showed the charting that shows, now everything's dropping, even wholesale dropping, right? So, but you still have that average day to turn dropping, right?
Customers are making decisions quicker. They're making decisions. One, they're making decisions, right? They're buying. And 2, they're making them quicker. Exactly. So, what does all this mean? Where does my focus need to be on a daily basis when I come into the dealership as a salesperson or as a manager? Where does my focus need to be spent? And that's why I loved what, when Brett posted this thing, I was like, man, this is exactly what we internally at Lotpop have been talking about for several months right now. So yeah. So that being said, John, Renaldo, I'm going to share with the viewers, with the listeners, what it is that spawned this conversation, as John just said. Okay. And I want you to weigh in here, but what I want you to weigh in on is the advice that you're giving our dealer partners at Lotpop when we're first bringing them on, because we see this all the time. We see all these inefficiencies, and we help coach and move them toward reprioritizing and being more efficient. So I want you to, after I share with this, I want you to share some of the things that you are advising these dealers to do to help with their efficiencies, because that's just what we do. We coach and we consult with these dealers.
Right.
So
before you hop into that, I just wanted to add something because, John, when you brought up that 19 hours of research that consumers are doing today, gathering information, they're working themselves halfway through that buying cycle, making that decision on what they're going to buy and who they're going to buy it from. And combine that with the fact that on average, a consumer will visit 1.4 dealerships when it's time to purchase a vehicle.
Yep.
And I've always kind of in the back of my head when I heard Chris say they're buying quicker. But we also heard a number that says that they're spending somewhere, what was it, 65 to 70 days in the market, gathering that 19 hours of research and deciding which one dealership they're going to go visit. Because if you don't get it right, then they're going to find that 0.4 dealership.
Point four
business.
If you don't get it right, 0.4.
Yeah. And so what it says to me is that these guys they're, and I did the same thing without even thinking about it. I saw vehicles online. I was like, oh, I wonder how that would drive or handle, fit my needs or whatever. And just kept gathering as much research as I could about it. You know, what's my mileage going to be? What am I going to be able to tow? Well, you know, and when I saw the vehicle that I had been looking for, it was on a Sunday evening, call the guy and say, hey, I'll be there first thing in the morning and I'm going to pick it up. But I had spent 3-4 months prior to that with this vision in my head of what I was going to drive, how much I was going to pay for it. And as soon as I found the match to it, I was there to get it. And so what that says to me is that as a dealer, if I'm sitting there and I'm doing something, and I actually had an occasion last week, a new manager in a store, we're going through training, and in the space of 30 minutes, he had 4 customers walk up to the sales desk while he and I were training. And when the third one came up, he says, hey, can you give me a minute? I'll be right back. And he cussed out everybody on the showroom floor. He says, that's the third time I've had a customer walk from the door to my desk and nobody said anything to him. What you guys need to realize is that all that other stuff that you guys are involved with right now, none of that matters if we don't take care of that person that walks through the door. Because nothing in this dealership happens until somebody sells something, somebody services something, or somebody orders something. And the only place that comes from is that person walking through that door. And so wanted to tie those two things together that, I mean, absolutely nothing happens when somebody until somebody makes that experience for the person that walks through the door worth their time, energy, and effort.
And I'll add this. I'll add this.
Go ahead, John.
No, I'm sorry, Chris. I want to add this real quick because I find myself, and I've talked to many people, and I hear them say the same thing. People will actually tip well for average service nowadays because service has gotten so bad.
Absolutely.
They'll absolutely tip well for average service because service has gotten so bad. Now, that's what you have to ask yourself if you're sitting in a dealership nowadays. And you got to understand, if this is what's going on out there, then how do I raise myself above that level, right? And you don't have to work too hard at it. I submit to you that when you're getting leads, you don't have to work that hard to outdo your competitors that the customers send other leads to. You just have to be you just have to be a resource of information, right?
Do the heavy lifting, right?
You just have to. You're right. It's just like we talked about what we like to do at Lotpop is we give time back to our dealers, right? We give them time back because we help them become more efficient. It's the same thing you can do for your customers as a salesperson, right? if I start, look, if they're doing 19 hours of research, they're researching. So if I can do some of that for them and send that to them, and I can reduce that 19 down to 14, now I just give them 5 hours back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how appreciative will they be of that? Everybody needs more time.
They're going to be so appreciative. They're going to give you their business.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to come to your store, right?
Yep. And not just that one time, every other time they are in the market to do business.
And they'll tell everybody about you.
Yep.
This guy
100 times over.
That young lady I bought my Tahoe from, anytime anybody asks me about where to go buy a car, you need to call her up, because she will absolutely blow your socks off, right? And she did. And I've gotten several people, man, I appreciate that recommendation. You were right. They're fantastic, right? So
Now, Renaldo and John both, I mean, there's two things I want to go back to. Then I promise listeners, viewers, I'm going to share what we spawn this conversation. I promise. Okay. But we've gone squirrel and shiny object ourselves.
We get excited about this, man, because this is the extra. Hey, this is absolutely, I get passionate about this because this is absolutely the extra squeeze in the orange for dealers. It absolutely is.
1,000,000%.
What we're talking about today, everybody can do the basics. What we're talking about today is the extra squeeze.
Mm-hmm. This is the extra squeeze. But there's a couple things I want to call out. So we've talked about, this average days to retail turn. We've talked about the amount of time that consumers are shopping. We talked about all these things, the 1.4 dealerships they visit. Let there be no doubt, listeners, viewers. John Doe customer wakes up in the morning and says, I want to buy a car. And 3 hours later, there's one in his driveway. That happens all the time.
Yep.
There's also John Doe customer that wakes up and says, I want to buy a car. And that person will research every last thing. Why? Because he's got a $1,000 computer in his back pocket he could do it with. He's got a laptop. He's got a desktop. He's got an iPad. He's got all these things to be able to research it. And they have access to the efficient tools that you are working.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is a digital retailing tool, whether it is a listing site that you have your cars on, whether it is a trade evaluation program, that consumer has the access to that. It arguably is why they're taking as much time as they're taking to research, because they have all these things at their disposal. I will never forget when the interweb started coming around in the car business, and people used to say, well, I went on KBB and it said my vehicle is worth X, or I went on NADA.com and it said my vehicle is worth X. I swear to you guys, I used to tell customers, hey, to do this also, go on to www.prentacheck.com and have them print you out a check for it. Because there ain't nobody going to print you a check for it except for me, and this is what your car's worth. I used to say that to customers.
Oh, yeah. And it was a fact.
I can't say that now.
No.
Because they can go on to third-party site and push a button, and it prints a check out their printer for them.
Oh, yeah.
So then I want to go back to what John was talking about with the tips. So number one, yes, consumers do take that much time because they have the resources and tools to be able to do it. But then there is still the customer that woke up this morning and said, hey, I want to buy a car. And 3 hours later, there's one in their driveway. The other side of it, where John was talking about tips. In the restaurant industry, in that world, tips is actually an acronym. It stands for to ensure proper service. So you want your tips to grow, give proper service.
Amen.
And your tips will grow.
Preach.
I see a red balloon because, when I'm at the counter ordering my bean burrito from Taco Bell, they're asking me for a tip. So
I'm not going to pay you. Yeah.
Right.
That's a whole nother conversation, Ronaldo. You don't go get me
Don't get
pissed off now.
don't get me started. Don't get me started with some of those dudes that
You start asking for a tip before you even provide me a service. Come on.
Right.
Anyway,
I apologize.
so a little shout out here, a little shout out to the car dealership guy. This is where Brett found this post, and we all thought this was extremely valuable, and it spawned this really great conversation we have. And the very first portion of it was this, or that the portion that Brett pointed out. Listen close, dealers. It says it here. Dealers are not short of software. They are short on insight. I'm going to say that again. Dealers aren't short on software. They're short on insight. And I'm going to unpack that a little bit more. Short on insight. Insight is not put into a box of data and understanding. Insight is broader. And in that software, in that new shiny tool, that is really also saying insight on how to properly utilize that new software tool. Renaldo, because I know you're running thin on time here, unpack for us when you get, and again, listeners, viewers, we're using our company because this is what we do all day long. We run into this exact scenario, and this is not an advertisement for us, but it's sharing our experience to what we run into daily that you guys are fighting with, that we're helping with.
Sharing our insight.
Share with us when we get that dealer and they got 7,000 different pieces of software tools.
Mm-hmm.
What are 1 to 2 to 3 things that you're like, okay, guys, hold on, time out. Let's level set. Let's reset. Yes, we're here to work the facts. Yes, we're here to talk about volume and gross and vertical alignment of inventory and lead management. But we got to get some stuff reined in right quick. Mm-hmm. What is 1 to 2, 3 things, Naldo, that you help coach in your training?
Well, I'll bring this first one up just because it's fresh in my mind. It happened about an hour and a half ago when we're talking about insights and some of the things that we bring to the forefront. I was talking to a dealer about their lot ready percentage. And for those of you who just kind of puts context behind it, we measure or we define lot ready in a digital dealership as being a vehicle that's posted online with a price, a description, and the minimum 16 photos. And sometimes that number of photos, I mean, we can kind of adjust that according to the dealership's wants, needs, and desires. But in this particular instance, trying to have a conversation about how important it is to have your vehicles lot ready and the standard that we set with the dealers that we partner with, wanting to be at 85% or higher of their inventory with those photos, that price, and that description, and diving into their information and their data. It was something that was on their radar, the importance of having those photos up, but couldn't really wrap their head around it until their turn rate was at 10 per year. So turning the inventory 10 times a year. We looked at the lot ready turn rate and it was at 26. And so they had been feeding me a lot of excuses as to why, they were at, I think it was 63%. Well, we had a guy who was shooting photos and He left, and then we brought somebody in. They were part-time and they couldn't do it. I said, okay, let me put some context on this for you. This is your sales rate, your turn rate, 10 times a year. Look at what you do with your vehicles that are lot ready. They're at 26. And the guy was like, so what does that mean? And I said, dude, that means that if you got a phone in your pocket, you should be taking photos of your vehicle and getting it posted online with a price and description, because it takes you from turning your inventory every 45 days or so to every 2 weeks. Does that make sense? I've never seen it that way. I've never thought about it that way. It's like, well, yeah, that's what we do. Provide you with those insights, but you aren't going to get that information from any place else. And so the tools that he has and he's been using for forever. This gentleman has been in the business for 35 years, not knowing exactly which numbers or which metrics are going to get the results that we bring to the table. And because they've never been exposed to those type of measurements and how it affects the bottom line, it was never on their radar to even consider or to attack. I mean, I'm at that point, if I've got that big of a discrepancy between my turn rate and my lot ready turn rate, I mean, before I hire anybody else in the dealership, maybe even a comptroller, I'm gonna have a photographer to shoot those photos and get them merchandised and properly. So,
but what you just taught the guy too, though, Renaldo, is this, and I'm gonna break in here for a second. He didn't even realize he could take his phone, and instead of crippling himself, he didn't even realize he could take his phone or a salesperson or a lot porter or a bum off the street and walk out there and utilize this thing right here in the existing tool that he has to go ahead and just fix the problem. And yes, is it a Band-Aid? Would you rather have somebody professionally doing that? Would you rather have somebody that is their job? Yes. But because what we're talking about today, he's got the software, he's got the tool, but his inefficiencies is costing him dollars.
But it's, I mean, I think you guys have heard me utter the phrase that sometimes we're doing less with more, because we do have so much technology at our fingertips, and we do have so many programs that are designed to put us in a position to succeed, whether it be merchandising or acquisition, whatever the case may be. There's a lot out there, but we lose fact of what's most important. It's kind of like the sales manager with a customer walking straight into the dealership and to his desk without anybody saying anything. We're clouded by what's really important. What's the main thing? And we have to keep the main thing the main thing.
Don't steal John's phrases.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know me. I've always been accused of being the king of cliches, but cliches are cliches because there's a bit of truth to them. Yes, and sir. So, John brings some to the table, and every time he does, I perk up and listen, because he's always going to bring some heat and some truth with it.
Well, that's what peepaws do.
Right. But at the end of the day, I mean, we get distracted by all the bells and whistles and all of the value propositions that come with pieces of software, or ways to shoot a vehicle properly to get you the most mileage out of the photos that you throw up. When at the end of the day, if I just take this thing out of my pocket, walk around the vehicle, shoot those photos, and I tell them the same thing. If I do that 16 times, put that out with my price and my description, day one, I'm getting a little bit closer to having that 26 turns, because I've got those 16 photos posted up of that vehicle. And so at the end of the day, to answer your question, wrap a bow on it. If we keep focus on what's driving the results that we're looking for, and we execute on it the simplest way that we possibly can, then our efficiency is going to go through the roof because we are just taking that one step that it takes to get something done and doing away with all the distractions. And
no, you're not wrong. And you all have heard me say it a million times over. And I think, Renaldo, you looked at me one day going, okay, that doesn't make sense, but that makes sense.
yeah.
You know, one of the things that we in our industry get very good at is we get very good at becoming consistently inconsistent.
Oh, yeah.
But to your defense, hell, even our defense, because we're still in the automotive industry, we're just on the indirect side. We get so many things thrown at us.
Right.
So many different things. John, let's go back to the peephole days when you were back inside the dealership. What were the top 4 things that, with no question, with no reservations, you made sure you did each and every day? Period.
Walked my inventory, called my customers, prospected, and recapped my day, setting up myself for my following day.
So you got a beginning and end piece in there. So that way, when you walked in the next day, you already had your plan in place.
And it never went according to Hoyle, as euchre players would, or card players would understand. But at least, I think before all the technology, what it taught was, one thing I didn't mention is waiting on customers, but that's a given, right? Customer comes in, you're going to wait on them. I'm just saying, when you asked me about what were the non-negotiables for me, those were it. I'm going to wait on customers, but and to that point, right? When I got a customer in the door, one of those 4 things may go out the window because I might be with that customer, 3-4 hours, right? Hopefully that's trimmed down now, but that used to be the case. Sometimes you'd sit all day with a customer. But
the grinders,
yeah, 100%. That had been to 5 other stores before they came to yours, right? That people don't do that anymore. They do that online, but they used to do that physically, right? So, but if I did get off on go down a rabbit hole, right? Because I had that set as a non-negotiable, I knew where to come back to, right? I didn't go down a rabbit hole and continue to go down another rabbit hole. I knew where to come back to, right? And for the most part, that made me successful. That's why I'm still in the business, right? It's because of the success. A lot of it has to do with the business. I love it, right? It was very close to athletics for me. It's because it's competitive, and the people in the business, but also the success. If you're not successful, you're not going to stick around, right? You're just not.
No.
You're going to go find something else to do, right? Now, I'll be honest. That's exactly how I started out, thinking, well, I'll do this until I figure out what I really want to do. 40 years ago. But no, hey, Chris, I want to because I don't want to get too far away from what you and Renaldo were just talking about, and you're going to find this, you're going to chuckle because this is going to sound very familiar to you, because I want to read a little excerpt out of a book that you recommended to me that I got, and I'm gobbling it up. So I want to read a little excerpt out of this, and it's really going back to what you and Renaldo were just talking about. So my business mentor, Sam Cupp, owns several companies totaling over $300 million in sales, including QEK Global Solutions, a worldwide fleet management company that he built into a $100 million business and then sold. He is one of the best businessmen I've ever met. I was blessed to have him take me under his wing at a young age and teach me everything he knew. Of all the wisdom, the most useful thing he taught me was the power of managing my business through a scorecard.
Mm-hmm.
A scorecard is a weekly report containing 5 to 15 high-level numbers for the organization. Because you're regularly reviewing the numbers, you will be able to quickly spot and solve problems as they come up, as opposed to reacting to bad numbers in a financial statement, right, after the fact. And this is exactly what we're talking about today with all these tools that we have available to us. We could get ourselves down a rabbit hole of 100 to 150 things, but what are the most important things that are going to help me stay proactive in managing my business instead of reactive? Because reactive is what costs us dollars. And in our world, Chris, what we work with dealers a lot on is managing our age buckets of inventory, because we find too many times that our partners are reactive to that management, and that kills when you're talking about depreciation, because just because you're a dealer doesn't exclude you from depreciation. Those vehicles depreciate on you just like they do a customer. And then 2, holding costs, right? And if I'm not proactive in how I'm managing these things, if I'm not pulling out those 5 to 15 crucial data points that are going to help me recognize what's happening within my new or used car department, then how can I stay proactive in what's happening in front of me? I can't. I'm reactionary.
No, you're spot on, John. And I want to emphasize that piece one more time, because that book I recommended to you, when I pulled it off the shelf and started rolling back through it again, now, along with the other book I recommended to you, is sitting right here on my desk. But I want to emphasize that one part again. A scorecard being that weekly report containing those 5 to 15 high-level numbers for the organization. In the data component portion of this, you will learn and create and implement this powerful tool into your company. It will enable you, hear me close, it will enable you to have a pulse of your business on a weekly basis, predict future developments, and quickly identify when things have fallen off track, because you're regularly reviewing your numbers. You'll be able to quickly spot and solve problems as they come up, as opposed to reacting to the bad numbers in a financial statement after the fact. All of that tying back into this episode 27, being a squirrel, okay? Because we have all of these great tools, number one, are you or have you reached out to the provider of that software tool to be trained and most efficient, to see what are the 1, 2, 3 most important things of that tool, and how does that help me get to my end result? Are you taking those tools, bringing them together to the sum whole? And if you have in the dealership, your CRM, your DMS, your inventory management tool, those are the 3 most important ones that you have. Those are, without question, those are things you're going to work every day. If you're a Stellantis store, you've got your back end tool with Stellantis. If you're Ford, you got your back end tool with Ford. If you're General Motors, same thing. Toyota, it doesn't matter. So those are the things that you're going to work. Your main OEM tool and your DMS, your CRM, and your inventory management. You're going to work those each and every day without question. Those are always going to be a tool that you're going to use on every single deal. Used car deals, CRM, inventory management, DMS. New car deal, you're going to work the CRM, the DMS, and the inventory management tool. And if you have a trade-in, you're really going to work all those tools to its fullest, along with the OEM tool. But the $1 million question, do you know, with the ancillary tools that you have on top of those, do you know what the 3, 4, 5 most important things of that tool are to help you get to your end result? Are you efficient with them? Do you know how to use the speed square out of your tool belt? Do you know how to use the chisel out of your tool belt? Okay. Those are the things that we're trying to impress upon you all. Is if you take anything from this call today, get off the call, pick up the telephone and call those solution providers to give you more training on how to use that more efficiently each and every day. And that's what that was talking about in that book that John is reading, is understanding those and measuring those out on a daily basis. When John first started selling, he talked about that. He talked about the first 3 things that he did. And then at the end of the day, he did a recap so he knew where to start tomorrow. That was essentially measuring or giving himself a scorecard to go attack the next day, because he did that at the end of his day. He recapped it. So those are things that we're trying to help you do. And if you don't know where to start, right below, for those watching on the YouTube, Spotify, you can sit there, send us a message, drop us a line here.
It won't cost you a dime, guys. I promise. It
won't cost you a dime. I'm very proud of this, but we were on, and John, it seemed like I had a run of like 4 or 5 dealers that this happened with. Dealer was really beside themselves when, and Renaldo was talking about it just a little bit ago, was talking about that lot ready effectiveness. And I'm crushing him going, why don't you get these cars ready? They're not out there to the consumer public with the right amount of photos, pricing, et cetera, the comments. Yes, they are. No, they're not. And what happened is I was familiar with the back-end tool of a third party that he's using. And when we were discerning the information, I identified in there, yes, you're correct. They're showing in your back-end tool, but your inventory management tool and that third-party back-end tool, they're the same parent company. So it's always going to show that you have the correct amount of photos out there in that back-end tool. But your advertising package is not big enough to support your inventory. So what happens in that back-end tool is, once there's governors inside there and there are rules inside of it, and I'll use round numbers for argument's sake, if your advertising package is for 75 cars and you have 100 in stock, it's only going to push 75 out. And if you sell 5 vehicles and free up 5 spots in that advertising package, whatever rules that you have set in place in your back-end tool is now going to pull the next 5 out and put them out there online. He had no idea.
Yeah.
Well, my rep was just here the other day. Well, I'm sorry, but you either misunderstood something or it wasn't a topic of conversation for you at that time, but here's what your challenge is. Well, lo and behold,
we find that a lot, actually.
Found it all the time.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, he picks the phone back up, calls his rep. A day later, they get back together. He shoots me a text message. Hey, Chris, thanks. You were right. It's not a matter about being right or wrong. It's a matter about being educated in your software that you have, so that way you can be efficient.
It's about insights.
So we invite you. It's the insights. Dealers are not short on software. They're short on insights.
Right.
Okay. So we invite you. Call us, text us, email us, drop a comment here in the YouTube. Okay. Reach out to us. We will help you go through the tools you have to get you in the right direction with how to use those tools properly. We will help you do that. And we won't charge you $1 to do it. Won't charge $1. So, John, we're coming up at the top of the hour here. 2-3 things that we've obviously identified, what one of our challenges is, and it ain't short on software. It's insights, and insights aren't just limited to the data analytics and understanding them. Give 2 to 3 things that you want our viewers and listeners to take away with them to help them as they're walking back into their workplace, as they're getting back in work mode. 2 or 3 things that they could do right now to make impact and change on their business.
Well, listen, the first thing I would say is, if you be honest with yourself, just be honest with yourself, right? Nobody in this industry knows it all. Nobody does. I don't. Chris doesn't. Renaldo doesn't. Our CEO, Jason Rice, although he is a whiz kid, a brainchild, he doesn't know it all, right? So be honest with yourself. If you feel like you're bringing a little ego to the table, remember that ego equals edging greatness out. And be honest just be honest with yourself. That'd be the first thing.
Hold on, Josh. Say that again. Hold on, because I want anybody that was wanting to take that note down for the leaders inside our dealerships, give that ego thing again.
Edging greatness out. Ego equals edging greatness out, because
Thank
you stand in the way, right? When somebody's trying to present a new concept to you and you say, I'm not interested, how do you know until it's been introduced, until you give it full time, right? That'd be another thing I would say is, don't sit in there and convince yourself you don't have time to do things, because you do. You do have time to do things. So, listen, we've got to be realistic as operators of what's actually happening in our business. And in order to be realistic about it, we have to understand what's happening in our business. We just do. And so if I know that I have 100 cars in stock, and in the first half of the month, I've sold 30 used vehicles with 100 in stock. If I don't do something, if I don't find out where that's off at and what's causing that problem, then if I project that out, that means that if I keep the same pace, I'm going to sell 60 with 100 in stock. What's going to happen with those other 40 cars? I have to be realistic about that. What's going to happen with those other 40 cars? They're going to get a day older, 2 days older, 3 days older, 4 days older, right?
They're going to depreciate.
And they're going to depreciate, and they cost me the average the last average that I heard, and it could have been adjusted now, but the last average I heard was the average dealer in the United States of America is paying $55 a day for that vehicle to sit in that parking spot out on your used car lot. So that's $550 every 10 days that goes by, right? $1,650 in a month as that vehicle sits there. So you might sell a car, but I have to know those numbers. I have to understand, look, if I sell a car in 30 days and I make a $3,000 gross on it, did I really make that money? Or do I have to take that $50 off there that it cost me to set that car there? Now, you might not be, your store may be selling cars fast. You might have an average sell day of 22 days. Well, if you do that, your holding cost is not $55 a day. I would encourage you, if there's a dealer out there that doesn't know what their holding cost is, their daily holding cost, I would encourage you to get a hold of us and let's walk through the math on that and help you understand that, because that's a critical element, right? I always joked around about it because it used to be joked around with me because I used to talk about it all the time. One, when I was a salesperson, because when I was a salesperson, we got paid on gross, right? So all you're focused on is what kind of gross can I make? And as managers, right, we get paid on the gross we generate in our department, right? So what kind of gross can I make? But what I want you to understand is at the end of the month, find out what your total gross is you're generated, and ask your owner to cut you a check for that. Ain't happening, Kimo Sabi.
Nope.
You can't, because you know what happens? Expenses come out of that money, and then the owner's left with a net, right? And so the reason why that holding cost is so important is I have to understand as an operator what my net is. And once you understand that, you're going to want to sell your inventory faster. And I want to find out all those insights that help me focus on the things that are going to get my inventory like Chris has been talking about this morning, and Renaldo. They're going to help me get my inventory through the process faster to get it out there so customers can find it, right? Chris, we talk about that valley. You come up with that term, and I love it. Dealers in the valley, right? We've added inventory, and now our sales drop off, and we're in the valley until that inventory gets ready. And the longer we take to get that inventory ready, the longer we're in that valley. So I just have to understand. I know I went way over what you asked me, right? 3 or 4 things. But again, man, with everything that's there available today, if we can just keep focused on those insights that are going to drive success for us, and we do that consistently, understanding that we're going to get pulled in different directions. But if we have those top 4 or 5 or 6 insights that we want to maintain consistently, then it'll help us. It's like that new technology, that lane change sensor on your car, right? If you bump up against that line, right, you bump up against that line, it takes you back in the center of the lane, right? And that's what these insights can do for you. You're going to get outside the lane, but they're going to bring you back on the road that you were on to have the greatest amount of success that you can have on a consistent basis. Guys, you can talk about having success over a 2 or 3 month period. The track record is for a year, right? Annually, how are we doing month in and month out? Are we maintaining a modicum of success? And that's the key to it. And it's all these insights, the most important ones that typically we look at as small things, but they're huge things because they add up to be the success that we have with our department, whether it be new or used car department or finance department or parts or service. All those departments under the roof of the dealership.
100%. 100%. I'll add one little bit to that, and it's actually just 3 pieces. And you've heard me say it a million times. We've talked about it. What stemmed this conversation of the squirrel, the shiny objects. We're not short on software, guys. There's plenty of it out there, and we're firm believers in it. Now, to be clear, we are not a software tool. We're a consulting company powered by factual data and software. So I'm not telling you that I'm a huge fan of software because we're a software company. I'm a huge fan of software because you can be very efficient with it when used properly, like the lane assist John was just talking about. If you push the little button to turn it off, it ain't going to work for you. But if you push the button and leave it on, it will consistently keep you in the lane. So we're not short on software, just insights and really know-how. So I would tell you this. Take inventory of the software tools that you have and start looking at which one of those have been providing you the insights and training you need to get maximum results from that piece of software. If you haven't been getting insights and training, then it's time to pick up the telephone and get it. That's number one.
I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there because I want to that point because I want to use your words. If you're not getting what you're desiring to get, is it a no problem or a no problem? And I'll let you finish that.
Is it KNOW or NO? If it's KNOW, pick up the telephone and get some knowledge. If it's NO, then as a dealer principal, as an operator, GM, GSM, you made the decision to have the software to be more efficient, to drive volume and gross. Is your team not embracing it because of KNOW or because of NO? And if it's because of NO, then we all got to do a checkup from the neck up.
Yeah.
And we got to make a decision. If it's NO, you as the operator that signed up for that or the dealer principal, the GM, GSM, you got to make a decision of, is the value not there? If it's not there because NO, shame on you. If it's not there because of KNOW, shame on the provider. Okay. Number 2, develop you a daily things to do list. And number 2A, on that things to do list, define what's urgent and define what's important. And make sure we get the urgent done long before the important. And there is a huge difference. And if you want to know more about that, please, we invite you. Go to LotTalkPodcast.com. You can reach John, Renaldo, myself there. Drop a note down below. If you're on the YouTube, the Spotify, drop a note to us. Okay? We truly, truly want to help you. Our number one core value is always been and will continue to be dealers first. And that doesn't mean you're a dealer partner of ours. You want some additional knowledge, you want some additional help, pick up the phone, give us a call. We'll love to have a conversation with you. That being said, folks, the invite's there, the door's wide open. Give us a call. We've gone a little over on time. My apologies. But this is something we really, really, really wanted to have a conversation about. Critical, very critical. On behalf of John Anderson, on behalf of Renaldo Leonard, I'm Chris Keene here at LotTalk, powered by Lotpop. We thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you next week at the same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, guys.